Hello, Internet. Good morning. I'm Ryan Ingram, and today is Friday, and this is the Friday morning real estate chat. So, really excited to be here. Really excited to talk to all of you guys. And since it's been a week or two since I've been able to do this for a variety of reasons, I have a fantastic kind of backlog of some questions that we can go through that were submitted via the comments in the event that people don't really have that many questions. So this should be a good one. I'm pretty excited about it. We've got closings today starting at 10. So this is probably going to last maybe an hour, hour and a half. So if you have any questions, I highly encourage you to ask those sooner rather than later, just because we might be on a little bit of a time crunch, especially because the likelihood of me going on a pretty long tangent for one of these questions is pretty high. So, as always, getting this disclaimer up here, not legal, not professional advice. I say things that should most certainly be fact checked and reviewed with a professional, especially because so much of this is situational. You know, there are just as many different ways to make money in real estate investing as there are people investing in real estate. So it really is going to come down to your specific situation and all the things that you have going on as to what is the best thing for you to do. So we could talk broadly about just best practices and all that, but Nora Stocks, hello, welcome back. I appreciate you being on. We are closing on 6 properties today. So pretty excited about that. I think just from like a rough review of what we're closing on, there's only one property that isn't occupied. Right now, one of the kind of corrections that we have made is we have entirely too many open rehab projects at the moment. I think we have about 60, 65 vacancies right now, and about 40 of those are like active rehab projects. So that creates quite the workload. So even though we have a significant number of contractors that help us work through stuff like this, things take time, and uh, time times come with holding costs. So the pivot that we're making is we are currently not purchasing anything that's going to be like a medium or heavy rehab. We will only buy things that are rent ready, already occupied, or the lightest of all possible terms. So I think one that we put under contract yesterday just needs some new carpet in the bedrooms, and then it is good to go. So that's the level of rehab projects that we're taking on. Now, as soon as we get some of this backlog cleared up, we're going to be buying those medium to heavy rehab projects because, you know, unfortunately for us, there's tons in the market right now. And these medium to heavy rehab projects generally come with a decent amount of equity. So there's a lot of incentive to do those. But for, you know, just looking at where we are from a global perspective, our whole portfolio, it just doesn't make sense right now for us to do that. And especially going into these winter months. So, you know, I've heard it both ways from other investors. We have personally experienced this past year a really big slowdown between like December and April, where we had fantastic properties priced appropriately, and it just took a while for them to get rented out because people don't really like moving during the snow season, which makes perfect sense. So I can't blame them, but that's how we're going to pivot. So consequently, you know, it took me a while to get to this point because I already had properties under contract. But today, I'm pretty pumped that of the 6 properties that we're purchasing, only one is unoccupied, and that is kind of like a medium level rehab project. So that'll add to our plate a little bit, but not too much. We are definitely going to rent ready the next purchase. Yes, I think it's really important, and I don't hear many people talk about that. Is the balance of, well, I guess to a certain extent, it's not important. It really depends on, you know, how many properties you're acquiring, how much time you have to work with. Again, I guess your personal situation. But once you reach any sort of mass, or you need to start doing some like cash flow projections. Um, it's really important to kind of balance how many properties you purchase in each stage that you're purchasing. Taking on 5 projects that are all heavy rehab, probably a bad idea. Taking on 2 tenant occupied, 2 rent ready, and 2 medium heavy rehab projects, that's a good spot to be, because the ones that are rent ready or tenant occupied are going to help carry the load of those medium to heavy rehab projects. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Definitely something to pay attention to. But hey, I mean, we're learning as we go. I heard this past week, I heard a quote that really resonated with me, because my brother and I, we were having the time of our lives, building these businesses and doing all this, but we've never done it before. So we are making, an understandable amount of mistakes. We always do our best to run the situations that we go through people that we trust, kind of mentors, coaches, that kind of thing. But so we are able to circumvent a lot of the issues that we make, but it's just uncharted territory, this whole thing. So we're working towards it. But the quote is building the airplane while you're flying. And I thought that was really fun. That really symbolizes exactly how I feel we're running and building this business. So pretty cool. Speaking of winter, do you re-winterize? If you did it last year, the property was winterized by the bank prior to us purchasing, but we will not be finished prior to old man winter. I think winterizing a property is a pretty good idea if you're not going to be working on it regularly. Winterizing really just consists of getting all of the water out of the pipes and not having the heat on. So I mean, if you're not going to work on it throughout the winter, then you won't need any water and you won't need any heat. So you're good to go. But if you're going to be there regularly and you're going to be there to check on it, then I don't think there's a real need to kind of winterize the property. That's not something that we do. And only a handful of occasions have we had burst pipes. So I wouldn't go through the process of winterizing, but I mean, I guess if you're even working on the property and you just want to turn off the water at the main before you leave, and I don't think that's a bad idea. That way, if a pipe does burst, you'll only get the contents of the pipe, not all of the water the city can provide you. Yeah, so it's not a bad idea, but I wouldn't go through the whole winterizing process. And we also don't plan on not working on these properties throughout the winter. So let me take a look at some of these questions. Wisconsin Woodsman said, what is the property management fee you pay a company to maintain it? We actually got a couple of questions about property management that I'm happy to go over. The property management fee, I would say in this area, what you'd expect to pay is about 10%. If you have any sort of quantity that you take to a property management company, that might give you 8%. But we used to use property management. Now we manage the properties ourselves. We took over property management when we were around 60 doors. And I think that was a really good decision. So I think technology has gotten to the point where even like the smallest of property owners can give off that feel of being a big company. So you can easily utilize technology to make the managing of your properties really seamless. And a lot of people, you hear about, if you talk about rental properties to anyone, someone in short order will talk about how they don't want to receive a call complaining about a toilet at 2 a.m. And, that's just not something that you should experience. Like if you experience that, it's because you haven't laid out the expectations appropriately, right? You haven't, at this point, you haven't leveraged technology in the appropriate way. So you getting a call at 2 a.m. about a toilet is something that shouldn't happen. That is not a natural problem that comes with having a rental property. That's a natural problem with not running your business like a business. So put your systems, your processes in place. You know, things like toilets, uh, those can be submitted via a work order, which takes place on an app. Most apps, most property management software at this point also comes with a phone number that you can text. So none of this has to be done via your personal phone. And if you utilize the phone number from that property management software, then you can give several people access to that. With the VoIP phone systems, it's so easy to set up an automated phone company to where, if you want to have an agreement with a 24/7 plumber, that's a service that many companies offer and are already set up for, then you can have some type of message that shows up on that phone tree after hours that says, hey, if you are experiencing some type of leak or plumbing issue that you cannot resolve by turning off your water at the main, then press 1 for emergency plumbing. And then it can forward to that 24/7 plumbing number. You can even preface it by saying this number will take you to, XYZ Plumbing, a company that we've partnered with to provide 24/7 emergency plumbing services. So obviously, if they start burning that up, then you're going to want to have like a teaching moment with that individual, but it's not something that can't be resolved. So your property management software is something that you should lean on. Technology is something that you should lean on to really ease the burden and the intensity of property management. So now, having learned the ropes of taking property management in-house, I would not hire a property management company again if I had to start over. When we first started, I took the advice of all the things that I read about on the internet that really displayed real estate investing as this passive thing that you should do, that you should be very hands off. You should allow the professionals to manage the property, someone that specializes in that. And nobody has your best interests like you would. Nobody is going to treat your residents as good as you will. And I wouldn't, as easy as property management is now, I wouldn't pay that 10% in order to prevent you from having to deal with that. So whenever we took property management in-house, again, we had around 60 doors. And I would say at the time, my brother and I were both working full-time jobs. It took us about somewhere between 2 and 4 hours a week individually in order to take property management in-house. So at the time with 60 doors, we were paying about $5,000 per month. So for 2 to 4 hours per week, we were able to recapture $5,000 a month of the cash flow from those properties. So good trade-off. And now, as we've continued to grow, it's allowed us to hire 4 full-time employees, which, hey, we're having tons of fun. And we are, in my opinion, doing a great job managing. So the way that we have it set up is we started a property management company, and it is only, I say that with tons of asterisks, we only manage properties that we own. So we're not like a licensed real estate broker. We're not even licensed realtors. We're not even real estate professionals, right? So the only reason that we made it a separate entity is so that it could be just like one, client-facing entity rather than whatever LLC we actually take ownership of that property in. So highly recommend that you do it yourself. So our property owning entities do pay that 10% management fee to the management company, and then that 10% fee from all the properties are what pays for the property management company's overhead. And the next question, Ryan, you mentioned in a couple of your videos that you use a management company for your properties. What services do they provide you for the 8% they charge you? I would consider the property management fee for most companies to be more like a retainer. That 8% or 10% gets you their services. However, it's my experience that most property management companies, as soon as a resident contacts them, as soon as they have a work order, as soon as they have to, do anything associated with that property, they're going to start tacking on fees. So I would say if you're in the market for a property management company, I would really nail down this specific point and figure out and get it really written out as to what this includes. Does it just include them collecting the rent? Like, is it really just kind of like a retainer? And they're going to have additional fees and charges for anything above and beyond collecting rent that they do on your behalf. And I would really nail that down. Another kind of like red flag that I see with property management companies that I strongly disagree with is getting into contracts like a 12-month, 24-month contract. I would not sign any of those with any property management company. And I kind of feel like this is the overall trend as subscription-based services become more common. But the last thing you want to do is sign a contract with a property management company to get 2 months in and realize that you despise working with them and you owe them a minimum of the next 22 months worth of their 8 or 10% if you want to break the contract. Property management is one of those things where everybody has to be performing very well and very consistently for all of this to go well, because there are just so many parties involved. So if you two decide that you don't want to work together, you two should be able to mutually decide and go your separate ways. There shouldn't be any type of contract. That management company on a monthly basis should prove its value to you, and you should be able to walk away at any given time. And I think property management is one of those really tricky industries because you've got two separate sets of clients with opposite interests. So it becomes really difficult to balance as a third party property management company. Just from what I've seen, the investor wants to make the most amount of money possible on the property, which the property manager inevitably feels responsible for. And then, the resident wants a fantastic place to live with no deferred maintenance on it. So the property management trying to juggle those two, it gets difficult. And especially if you have it set up to where, property management companies can only spend $500 before they need to get your approval for it. And, depending on where you are in the world, that just doesn't necessarily go over well. So I think one of the competitive advantages that we have owning the management company and only managing properties that we own is there is no approval process. As soon as the work order comes in, we know that we are going to fix that issue and we fix it promptly. We have no downtime in waiting for that. So if you're in the market for a management company, really drill down, figure out exactly what is included in that fee, and make sure that you two can part ways if they don't like working with you and if you don't like working with them. The next question we have, are there any programs to help us pay off our rental properties? Yes. Having a renter in that rental property. That rent will include and hopefully be above and beyond what you need to pay for your mortgage payment. And, nobody needs to bail you out if you're providing a good product and you've got a good client base. So I wouldn't suggest using any programs to help pay off your rent. Michael Collins, good morning. You've answered this question a lot in your live streams, but my question is about financing. Go for it. I unfortunately don't have the private financing option and only made $50K yearly as a medic. How do I get loan financing? Last 3 mortgage brokers told me I'm too poor in this market. Your debt to income's not high enough, huh? Well, Michael, I would say that most people, I mean, $50,000 a year, you shouldn't beat yourself up about that, right? So, I think it's like $33,000 a year puts you from a global perspective in the top 1% of income earners throughout the globe. So, first off, $50,000 is a fine annual salary. That is more than I ever made as I was gainfully employed, right? So, your debt to income, what market you're in. I mean, that stuff matters. I was living in North Carolina, and you couldn't even buy a condemned home for less than 100 grand. I move up here to Ohio, and I would say our average purchase price on the property is 60 grand at this point. When we first moved here and started buying it was like 40 grand. So yeah, things have gone up, but I would take a really hard look at what kind of market you're trying to get in. And there are some markets that you can get a foothold that have a lower cost of entry. So, you know, medic, that is a job where everyone everyone needs that position. So you could go anywhere in the nation and be a medic. And it's also one of those industries where, for the most part, the salaries are comparable across the nation. So, my response to you would first off move. Especially if opportunity and your livelihood is at stake, right? So once you educate yourself to the point where you have all of the information necessary to be a successful real estate investor, the only thing that you're lacking is the appropriate finances at the entry costs. Move somewhere far more affordable. Um, there's one guy that I admire a lot that just moved to Dayton from LA. So, you know, he couldn't buy anything in LA. He put offers on single family homes for $725,000 and got beat out. Now he moves to Dayton and he owns three, maybe four houses now. So, where you live and where you're trying to invest matters. And if you feel like you're firing on all cylinders, if you feel like, $50,000 is all you can do, then you need to move to a market that's going to allow you to start doing some damage in that market. And then if you don't feel like you're tapping yourself out, if you don't feel like $50,000 is all that you make, if you have some bandwidth to learn some additional skill sets, to explore some additional resources and figure out how to increase your income, then by all means, I would classify being a medic and being in law enforcement as pretty similar, right? So inevitably being a medic, there's a little bit of downtime in there or some really good days off. So what I did when I was in law enforcement, when I realized that I didn't have the ability to make enough money to provide for my family the kind of lifestyle that we wanted, what I did was I committed to reading a book per day on how to make additional money um, until I figured that out. So what I did was slowly gain skills by educating myself that were allowing me to make additional capital, which in turn would cause me to be more bankable, which would cause my debt to income to be to a point where I could get a foothold in the new market that I moved to. So it all runs together. And I would say between working on yourself, gaining some new skills, and putting those to use out in the marketplace to increase your income, I think that's pretty solid. Another thing that I would really encourage you to do is wholesaling real estate, right? So finding good deals in real estate is one of the hardest things to do. So if you can get that skill set down, even if you don't have the capital to take down the deal by yourself, if you just find a good deal, put it together, and then find somebody that actually has the capital to take down that deal, they are likely willing to pay you a pretty healthy reward. I think that the most expensive wholesale fee that we've paid so far has been 15,000. Now, I have a good friend who paid a $60,000 wholesale fee. It was on a multifamily, and the deal still made sense even with that $60,000 wholesale fee. So, what that wholesaler did essentially was go out, find a good deal, market it to somebody that had the money, and added a kind of fee for him putting together that deal and just introducing the two parties. So, If you want to get into real estate investing, start learning some of the mechanics of real estate investing. That comes with a new skill set. That skill set is marketable. It has a value, in the marketplace, and you are able to increase your financial performance, which will in turn positively impact the bank's view of your financial situation and start qualifying you. And then lastly, I would really challenge you on the fact that you don't have private lending available to you. I really wish I started making these videos sooner so that we could collectively go back and look at the position that I was in and what resources I had available to me, right? Because at this point, we have a decent amount of private lending, and it's quick for people to say, oh, well, he is plugged into a network that has these funds, and that's something inherently different from the position that I'm in. Sure, now, 5 years later, after me regularly working, doing the right thing for all the people that were willing to do private lending, and word of mouth from the people that were happy and satisfied with the products that we were offering, went and told all their buddies, right? So it has turned into this thing that has been a really solid thing for us. But before private lending was an option for me, you know what I did? Read some books, right? So one is called, I think, Raising Private Capital by a guy named Matt Faircloth. I read that book. He kind of really walks through, lays out the groundwork of utilizing retirement accounts, rolling them over into self-directed accounts, and then, doing private lending from there. It gives you all the information that you need, even if you don't have the retirement funds yourself. Being a medic, you work with people that are going to leave, right? They're going to leave your job. And as soon as they leave that job, all their money in their retirement savings is going to sit there unless they roll it over. If they're going to roll it over, then they can roll it over into a self-directed retirement account. And from that self-directed retirement account, they can lend that money to you, right? So my first private lender was a friend of mine who I went through the police academy with. And the only reason that he was willing to lend me that money is, first off, I had the knowledge of how he could utilize those funds. Second, I had the trust. We went through the police academy together. We got partnered up on a couple of excruciating things that we had to do together in the police academy. And from that grew a fantastic friendship. One where he knew I wouldn't run off with his funds or misuse them or do anything else. So, that was the first little string that I was able to pull in forming a network of private lenders. And from there, in regular conversation, from that point on, I was able to then start saying, hey, I regularly borrow money from friends and family at 10 and 12% interest. That interest is paid out monthly. The initial funds are secured by a first position mortgage on the property. So in the event that I default, that private lender gets the property, same as a bank would if somebody stops paying their mortgage. And that is a really appealing offering to many investors, especially those that are leery of the stock market or want more accountability if someone were to lose their funds. So I would disagree 100% on the fact that you don't have private lenders available to you, right? Like, you have people in your network right now that would take a chance on you and that would lend money to you with no experience in real estate investing, that wouldn't qualify before they lent their money to me. They don't know me. They don't trust me. You have a track record with everybody that you've worked with. So, again, private lending and any type of financial transactions outside of the institutional ones that we're used to having, like with banks, where they're so large, they have this money to lend out. They really don't care about who you are as a human. They just go through their little check boxes. Well, when it comes to private lending, it's completely different. First off, you have to have the knowledge. You have to be able to walk through people, because a lot of people don't even know that this self-directed strategy is even available to them. So, again, the first private lender that I had, I think it was like $20,000, $26,000. It wasn't that much, but again, because I had the knowledge to help him roll that over, because I had the trust with him, that $20,000, has now grown because I had a track record from that moment, from the time someone first took a chance on me. I could then start publicly saying, hey, this person took a chance on me, and here is the track record of me paying him on time every single month, exactly as outlined in that promissory note, right? So um, everybody has private lending available to them. It really just comes down to, are you serious about forming some private financing options and financing relationships? Or are you just going to kind of hide behind you not having put in the work and not having taught yourself? And you're just going to say, that's not available to me, and kind of write it off and go the whole woe is me route. So anybody could build a private lending network. There is so much money out there, and too few options to put that money into. I could go on a very long rant that I won't, because we're running out of time, just about my disdain for Wall Street. And people have spent billions, if not trillions of dollars in marketing, specifically to the blue collar kind of working class people, of, hey, 401ks, IRAs, this is the way to go. Give your money to Wall Street, invest in these stocks, and retire when you're 60 years old. Like, that's the way, right? Like, that's a little marketing package, kind of like milk and cereal, right? The two benefit each other, but the two don't benefit. They don't benefit you. They don't benefit me, right? The more positive control that you can take over your financial situation, the sooner you're going to be able to live whatever kind of lifestyle you want. You don't have to wait until you're 60. That's nonsense. Whew. All right. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm thinking about getting into wholesaling. There's no real estate investor for this city. Would it benefit me to join a RIA in another city if it were not possible to attend any events in person? Yes. So the RIA, the Real Estate Investors Association, I would say it's good for networking. It's good for finding people that also want to invest. However, at this point, there are a significant number of alternatives that you can do. There might not be Real Estate Investors Association in Jacksonville, but I'm positive that there's a Facebook group. I'm positive that there are local investor meetings. I'm positive that, there are other people in the World Wide Web that invest in Jacksonville, Florida, that are looking for other people to talk to about investing in Jacksonville, Florida, right? So I would say, for the most part, that the Real Estate Investors Associations are businesses that they bring in, speakers to teach you a little bit, give you little, like a kind of like a movie trailer of their product offering, and then sell you a course. I am 100% against spending any money on a course to help you learn how to do real estate investing. Like, real estate investing has been a thing since people have been around and have needed places to live, right? So there is absolutely nothing new in this industry. There is no new ways to do it. A lot of people want to talk about the Burr strategy, but that's just, again, another marketing package. That is a company that tried to revamp real estate investing. But when you really boil down that strategy, it is real estate investing, something that has been happening for a significant amount of time, right? Way before that strategy was a real thing. So meet other people, sure. Don't buy courses, and meet other people that are interested in real estate investing by any way that you know how. The internet is a really good place. I know one guy who's doing a fantastic job investing in real estate in Northern Ohio, and he has built almost his entire network of real estate investors. He now has some private lenders. He has found a lot of deals via seller financed, and also, just more traditional, just outright purchases. And he built his entire network on Twitter. I've never heard of anyone doing that. But he did. He just got on Twitter and started asking questions about real estate investing and participating and responding to people and reaching out to people. And now, he's doing pretty well for himself. And 90% of it happened on Twitter. So you can get it done. Good morning. Yep. Yeah, we had a rough couple of weeks, but we're here, and that is all that matters. And I'm having tons of fun. I've missed everybody, and I'm happy to see you. Is it worthwhile to be a member of multiple RIAs in different states, cities? I wouldn't do it. Um, I'm like barely a member at our local RIA. I think it really depends, just like any other kind of social um, network, is it really depends on the people that are involved on a local basis. So I don't know. If RIA is the easiest and the most efficient way you find to network with other people interested in real estate investing, then sure, it makes sense to be a part of multiple cities and multiple states RIAs. But if you are able to find a place in the World Wide Web where other real estate investors are gathering and you're able to meet them there instead of multiple cities or states RIAs, then I would do that. Let's see here. What's the best way to approach someone that is selling their property via owner financing? What docs should we have in tow? Would take two lifetimes. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you. Hey, I appreciate it. That's really fun. Thank you. As far as someone interested in selling their property via owner financing, I would be a little bit cautious. I would be a little bit cautious as to somebody that is marketing a property specifically for owner financing. I see it every now and then come up on the MLS or come up on one of the local real estate investing sites, and somebody that is already marketing their properties for owner financing generally, I feel like, have a propensity toward being a little bit predatory, and kind of stacking the contract in favor of them, right? So, what you don't want to do is put 20% down and it not be, refundable. You don't want to get to the end of the term and pay, three times what you're going to pay for the property. I think the best owner finance deals come from building the relationship. So finding a property you're interested in, and whenever we were, looking at and leaning on seller financing in order to build our portfolio, when we were in Michael Collins' position early on and we couldn't find bank financing once we reached a certain point. Because even if you're perfectly bankable, unless you're knocking down a really high W 2, banks want to see a 2 year track record of you being a real estate investor before they're willing to count the income from your real estate investing activities. So just because your portfolio consists of 5 properties that are rented out, the mortgages and the expenses of those are going to count against your debt to income, and the income won't. So you're going to be a little catawampus in the bank's perspective until you kind of prove yourself as a seasoned real estate investors, which banks decided that that's 2 years. So for the first couple of years when we hit that point, when banks kept telling us, hey, we want to hold off and see your tax returns to make sure you're good at this before we give you money. We asked every single good deal that I came across. I asked people, "Hey, would you be interested in seller financing?" And from there, some people were like, "Hey, what is that? Tell me more." Which then that put my foot in the door, and I was able to kind of make a sales pitch on my vision, what I would like to accomplish, and how this might play in, and what the benefits are to them and what the benefits are to me. And then they can decide. Other people, obviously shoot it down really quickly and say, nope, not interested in that. And other people will think about it and say no. Other people will think about it and say yes. So I would say that is probably a better option than answering the call for people that have already decided that owner financing is something that they're interested in doing, and market accordingly. A good rule of thumb for owner financing is you could either have your sales price or your terms, but you shouldn't be able to have both, right? And I found that when people, again, vet every single deal and possible deal that comes your way, right? So, this could easily not apply to the situation that you're talking about or the situation that somebody comes across when they're marketing owner financing. But generally, when I found them and those opportunities being marketed, they want their sales price and they want their terms. So it makes it not a good deal. And I think a good example of this is the individual that I just mentioned that built his network mainly via Twitter. He recently negotiated some seller financing. The seller was really caught up on the sale price. And uh, my friend thought that that was too much, but you could have your sales price or you could have your terms. So what he did was he took the sales price, he agreed to the sales price, and then negotiated on the terms. And he ended up negotiating a 10-year amortized loan at 2%. So when you do the math on that, if you do, if you amortize that, if you look at the total overall payment, it is going to be pretty comparable, if not the exact same as, if you were to get a better price at a higher percent interest. So it really comes down to negotiation. And one of the really cool things I love about real estate investing, once you deviate from the institutions that I previously referenced that, we talked about, they're so big, they just have money, they need to lend it out, they really don't care about you. They came up with these formulaic check boxes. As soon as you get away from those guys, and real estate offers you an avenue where you can deviate from that checkbox system. And ultimately, it comes down to virtually anything that the buyer and the seller agree upon. So you can negotiate to your heart's content. And so long as you two are able to find common ground and agree on something, by golly, you got yourself a deal. So it's a very, very solid option. Driving for dollars is the best way to find deals. Always to find deals. Always deals can be found are the best ways to find deals. So I don't know anything about batch. I use PropStream a lot, and I am a huge fan of PropStream. In fact, there's a link to a 7-day free trial in the video description, which I'm a huge fan of. I'm in Houston, Texas. Market is high. And have any book recommendations? Also thought about foreclosures, watching your videos, and we're looking at a third phase foreclosure in court. Um, you know, foreclosures is one way to find deals, and I think deals can be found there. But I think foreclosures really ebb and flow. I think right now foreclosures are a little bit lax since foreclosures were temporarily stopped. And then we had a bunch of money enter the marketplace to prevent a lot of foreclosures from happening. I also think that they are going to continue to be lax because the housing market, like the inventory, is just so low. There's no need to foreclose when there's only 10 properties available in the market, right? Somebody somewhere somehow is going to get that property and relieve the owner from the foreclosure prior to that foreclosure actually taking place, because there are just so few options. There are more buyers than there are homes. And I think that simple fact, I think, is going to ease the burden of any recession on the housing market, because people are looking to move, people are looking to buy homes, people are looking to invest, and there are more buyers than properties available. So while I would encourage everybody to keep an eye on foreclosures, I would not overlook any of the other ways to find deals. So I made this one video called 7 Streams of Deal Flow, and I would encourage everybody to build up at least 7 streams of deal flow. Same as, ideally you would have 7 streams of income if financial independence is important to you. Similarly, if having a real estate portfolio is important to you, then you should have 7 streams of deal flow where you can look at different deals in different circumstances and find the good ones with the equity and or the cash flow, and purchase those. So I've found that when you go all in on one type of deal flow, you overlook a lot of other good deals that come your way. And, kind of as I have probably at this point said too frequently, is there are just as many different ways of making money in real estate investing as there are people investing in real estate. So, keep that in mind and get really creative as you're trying to put all the pieces, and, as you're educating yourself and as you're out there trying to make this a reality for you. Just start piecing everything together and just get creative in finding deals, get creative in financing deals. And, surely if you put so much brain power into it, you'll find success. I've found that the fastest way to be unsuccessful in real estate investing is by sitting in your computer chair, reading endlessly literature and analyzing deals uh, far too long, and never taking any action and never getting out there and meeting people, networking with other investors, formulating a plan, finding deals, walking properties, making offers. That's what's that's what's really gonna move the needle. Getting wrapped up in online conversations about impending market crashes, um, interest rates, all of that is not going to find you success. While I'm never going to say don't be cautious, don't educate yourself, don't kind of stay current, you need to formulate your own opinions. And regardless of what's happening in the marketplace, it doesn't substitute the necessity of being out there, putting in the work, uh, and being proactive on pivoting and adapting to the market to find the deals and to get the equity and to generate the cash flow. That might be a good YouTube short. I like that little rant. I think that sounded good. So many people want to be real estate investors, and they get too caught up in the analysis or the education side. And I think, I was reflecting on this yesterday in kind of like an interview of sorts, and that is that when I first started back in 2016, all of these podcast people were predicting a market crash, and they were saying, "Hey, now is the best time to sit on the sidelines and um, wait for the market to correct, and then you can start buying properties." Well, prices continue to go up, interest rates continue to go down, and they held tight on their crash thing. And we're in a much better position now to weather a recession than we were when we were buying, when people were saying this, right? But now that housing prices are starting to kind of level out, maybe decrease, houses are staying on the market for longer. Um, Interest rates have gone up. So now, even though prices are going down, people are now complaining about interest rates. Bringing it full circle to, there are two types of people. One that finds reasons not to do something, and other people that find the ways to be successful in taking the action. So be smart, be cautious, and take too much action. Hey, there you go, man. Yep, I like it. Are you responsible for the second mortgage on a foreclosure? I know the first mortgage will bid that amount as a minimum, but what about the second? So the first position mortgage will only bid that amount to a minimum generally if it's like a government-backed loan or if the housing value can sustain it. But what I think is pretty crazy are the amount of first position mortgages that never even show up to the foreclosure. So I wouldn't necessarily kind of put that out there as a rule of thumb. And then I would also say that yes and no. It really depends on the county that you are kind of bidding in. So definitely make sure of this first, because every place has their own rules. But I actually know of a guy recently. He won a property at an auction, but there was a second mortgage and some clouded title otherwise. So he did not, in fact, actually have to purchase the property because the property wasn't it didn't have the county couldn't pass over a clear title. So In the event that you were not to do your due diligence, not to do the title check, not to find the second mortgage, maybe you might be responsible if you purchase the property and take possession of it. But if you do your due diligence on the front end before you take title and hold the county responsible for it, then maybe not. All right, we reached the end of the comment section. Let me see if there are any other good questions. Here's a good one. Miss Watson. Hey, Ryan, I appreciate the wisdoms you share in your videos. Do you know any lenders that will do cash out refinancing on a home with an ARV of less than $100,000? Yes, there are a significant amount of them, and they generally are local credit unions or regional banks. So, lending is one of those things where you can call 10 different banks and get 10 different criteria that they hold themselves to, right? So there are two important distinctions to make here, right? Like the banks that are going to sell the properties back to like the Fannie Freddie, they are all going to have the same requirements. And then the second, it's like a portfolio loan, which just means the bank is going to make the loan and then hold it in their personal portfolio. When banks do that, they have the authority to lend out money to their own liking, right? So they are going to have their own rules. There's not going to be this nationwide kind of governance over, the minimum ARV or the minimum loan to value. It's whatever that bank decides to do. So one of the things that my brother and I kind of did early on, which, a lot of what my brother does kind of goes unnoticed to a lot of people, especially, and I don't really talk about it much because he's the one that's spending all this time doing it. But just as feverishly as I'm looking for new properties for us to purchase, my brother is on the back end looking for new banks that are willing to work with us. So, I might walk through 10 properties on a given day. My brother might call 10 banks on a given day. So it's hard work to find a bank that's willing to work with you and willing to finance the type of property that you're interested in purchasing. So if you find yourself in this position, there are two things that you can do. The first is to continue your search to find banks that are willing to work with you. The second is find a bank that wants to work with you but has their criteria, and then modify your business model to fit their lending practices. And we have done that personally. So my brother finds and builds great relationships with some lenders. We want to use them. And we have started investing in properties that fit their criteria just so we could do business with them. So obviously they're still good deals. They still cash flow. They just look a little bit different. We started buying properties that are worth more than $100,000 as a result of finding one of these lenders that really wanted to work with us and that we really liked them. And that was their criteria. So fantastic question, Ms. Watson, and I hope that is helpful. Where do you come up with the formula and comparables to get your numbers? I would say, so I have PropStream now, and I use PropStream pretty frequently in order to get, in my opinion, a very active comp report or report of comparables, right? So PropStream gives you the ability to see recent sales, and they also link to MLS photos or any other online photos that they can find so that you can scroll through the property's condition and find one that either A, meets the expectations that you have of your property when you are rehabbing it, or the current condition of your property. So a lot of times I'm running comp reports to figure out, after we've renovated it up to our standards, which I like to think is above average, what's that property going to be worth? So I would just keep in mind that comparables are a very subjective thing, as are appraisal reports. So even though you run a comp report to the best of your ability, it's not unlikely that an appraiser, when the bank calls them, is going to spit out a number different than yours. This is not a black-white area. This is a gray area where, you could get as many different numbers as you get appraisers. So keep that in mind. And then the formula that we use to purchase properties, that's purchase price plus rehab costs equals 75% or less of the after repair value. The reason that we do that is because most lenders are willing to go up to 75% loan to value. So we want to get all of our money back after we purchase and rehab a property. So in order to do that, we can't exceed 75% of the after repair value. So some markets that's possible, some markets that's not. I completely understand. The hotter markets, the ones that are very competitive, where you have a lot of people flipping, a lot of institutions, building to rent or buying rental properties, it's going to be tough. You might not be able to hit that. Margins get thin as things get more competitive. Other markets, if your purchase price and rehab costs come anywhere close to 75% of the after repair value, then it's probably not a good deal, right? It's really dependent on where you are as to whether or not you can follow that. But our model works anywhere that you're able to achieve that. So great question. All right, let's see. So one of the questions I think we did a good job already answering is home loans and financing in 2022. And I think it really comes down to the individual bank that you work with. So as we just went over, there are two types of loans that banks make. Ones that they're going to resell after they originate the loan. Generally, most times that's sold to Fannie or Freddie. So there is a stringent set of criteria that these banks have to meet. And banks that resell those loans all across the country have to follow the same guidelines. So one of the first things that you should do if you're looking for financing from a bank is figure out if they offer products only to resell to Fannie Freddie, or are they going to hold some in their portfolio? If they're going to hold some in their portfolio, like what are their criteria that they look for in order to hold that locally rather than reselling it? And you're going to get, once you cross over into the banks that are going to hold these loans in their own portfolio, then the rules and the stringent criteria kind of go out the window, and it really comes down to what that individual bank wants to do. So if you're looking for a home loan, I would, especially if it's on an investment property, I would first make that distinction, because once you know Fannie Freddie's guidelines, then you can reasonably predict all of the supporting documents, all of the income verification that the banks are going to ask you for, because it's the same criteria over and over. You call 100 different banks that are going to resell to Fannie Freddie, you're going to get the exact same speech and criteria. Now, once you cross over again to things that they're going to hold locally, you call 100 different banks and they're going to give you 100 different options of criteria. I think the easiest one that I can point to is seasoning requirements. We have some banks that we work with that have no seasoning requirements, and we have others that are as long as 18 months and everything in between. So we have lenders that we work with that we know if we haven't owned that property for 18 months, they're not interested in refinancing that for us. And then, that's pretty much what it goes to for the institutions. And then if you switch over into that private lending section, that's when the gloves really come off. And it really comes down to anything that two people can agree upon are likely permissible. So there are some state usury laws you have to be aware of, but if it's business to business, generally those don't apply. And if you find somebody that has money that they want to lend and it be secured by real estate, then you two come to an agreement and you are going to be able to find some private lending. And I think if you are interested in learning more about raising private capital or utilizing private lender funds, I think one of the best books out there that you could read is called Raising Private Capital by Matt Faircloth. Another Another thing that comes up really frequently is how to afford an investment property. And I think this is something that is extraordinarily personal and really comes down to your personal situation. I would say the most important thing is you want to be financially sound before you even think about purchasing an investment property. When it comes to single family homes, when it comes to even multi units, just buying one increases your exposure tremendously, right? Like the most expensive thing that could possibly go wrong with a house, as soon as you buy it, that becomes your problem. So from day one, you run the risk of dramatically increasing your exposure and only increasing the income very small. Like the best like average cash flow of a rental ranges from $200 per month to $400 per month. So you have to be really careful as you're building a real estate portfolio, especially early on, that you don't unnecessarily increase your exposure, because the actual cash flow generally is going to be insufficient to cover those larger exposures. So you want to be really careful, and you want to make sure that first you're financially sound, that all of your personal finances are, in order, and that you, for the most part, exhibit disciplines and behaviors that allow you to save a good portion of your income, because you are inevitably, as you build this portfolio, going to get a larger and larger exposure of things that you could potentially be responsible for. And then the second thing that I would say, after you make sure that you are, financially sound, is you really need to educate yourself and try and, ward off future problems by reading an appropriate amount of literature on the front end. So you're going to want to, read a decent amount of books, particularly about the type of investing that you want to do. If you are interested in investing in multifamily properties, then, literature on buying single family homes is likely irrelevant. You're going to want to really educate yourself on all of the things that go into investing in multifamily, and, vice versa. There's tons of literature out there. Real estate investing is one of those things that have been around as long as people have needed places to live. So there are a ton of different people out there already investing in the asset class that is of any interest to you. So finding people that already have the portfolios that are similar to what you're looking to build for yourself, network with those people, figure out how to add value to those people, and figure out how to eventually convince one of those people to be your mentor and to help you make decisions. For the entire time that I've been investing, I would say before I make any decision, there are 3 to 4 people that I'll run it by to see if I'm missing anything. Now, as I have gotten into a groove and have done this for a decent amount of times, like the amount of times that I ask questions has become more infrequent over the things I'm now comfortable doing. But when I even get the mildest sense that I'm kind of stepping out of my comfort zone, I will definitely consult probably too many people before I actually make a decision. So surrounding yourself with the appropriate network is also a very important component of affording your first investment property. I would say that the actual income required to purchase a rental property is one of the least important factors when it comes to affording an investment property. Because even if you have the capital, but you don't have the appropriate knowledge and you don't have the appropriate network, it's just a matter of time before you make some unnecessary error that could potentially wipe out all of the cash flow and all of the equity that you've amassed as you have purchased this investment property. So be careful, educate yourself appropriately, surround yourself with people that have already achieved what you desire to. And always remember that, especially when it comes to investing in real estate, there is nothing new under the sun. Someone has already done it. Someone has already dealt with that exact same problem. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. Do not let your pride get in the way and you make a senseless mistake that costs tens of thousands of dollars just because you didn't want to consult someone who has already been there and has already fixed that same issue. And with that, I am going to go buy some properties. So we have 6 properties today that we're closing on. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, only one of those are not occupied. So as far as our project management goes, I'm not adding too much work this week, which is a big win. We're definitely, for the foreseeable future, focusing on occupied or rent-ready properties. And the only reason I say that is because we are lacking the manpower to take on many more medium or large rehab projects. We have about 40 in the queue at the moment, which is intimidating. And we want to get that number way down before this winter comes. However, I will say it's kind of like you always kind of find the thing that you're looking for. Now that I have put out there that we're not purchasing any medium or heavy rehab projects, we have had some extraordinarily high equity deals come our way. Of course, they are all in need of major rehab, but the prices are fantastic. We've had some for 20,000, 30,000 come our way in the areas that we're interested in investing in. But hey, it is really good to form strategies, assess risks, mitigate risks, and keep on powering forward. So, hey, I really appreciate all of you. Thank you. And next Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be right here to answer any questions that you may have. PropStream, you should probably click that free trial and play around with that software to find comps, to find foreclosures, to find pre-foreclosures, and overall just to become a better equipped investor with more resources at your fingertips. And as that 8th day rolls around and you have to pay for it, it'll benefit me. So I appreciate that in advance. So I'll see you all next Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.